So Shelach is a passage, obviously, that talks about spies, and we just heard the passage read for us. It's really awesome, and when I think about spies, I always think about them kind of working in secrecy, doing things that nobody gets to see, sneaky, just making things happen, and you don't even know that they were there. In fact, something happens, and you don't know that somebody was behind it making it happen. And I was thinking this week, and I remembered there was pieces of art or these interesting posters that I've seen. I guess maybe I noticed them first in the 90s or something like that. Have you ever seen those posters that have kind of like this strange pattern? And then if you stare at them just in a certain way, all of a sudden you start seeing a picture within the picture. You've seen those? You know what it's, some of you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like, what is this? I'm looking at this pattern, all of a sudden there's an image inside. I'm like, how did I not see this before? And then I've seen like people look at it, and some people see them right away. For others, they could stare at them for hours and they still don't see anything. They're like, I just see a pattern. I don't know how it is, but I think that just has something to do with how our brains work or something like that. We're just not able to perceive it. So maybe you're familiar with that interesting art expression. So that's when I think about spies. I always think about seeing things and not seeing things that are happening behind the scenes. And there's that, I think that can transfer to something that many of us are more familiar with when we read the words of the prophets or the Torah, and that's a certain spiritual awareness. Some of us have it, some of us don't. Last week I spoke about God's Spirit, and this week I'm kind of continuing this trend. So to me, when I read the words of the prophets, they are very Spirit-filled. Whether I read the oracles of the prophets that predict something futuristic, or I just read the stories, I read the narratives, they're just full of Hashem's Spirit. And so when I read the story of Rahab and the Israelite spies in the book of Joshua, it's iconic. It is a very Spirit-filled story. I love it. Israel is preparing to attack the Canaanites, and one particular Jericho woman turns out to be exceptionally attuned to the fact that God is behind Israel. Now, this only happens, as I reflect on this, I think this only happens to a person who's truly spiritually sensitive. And in this particular case, also a person who trusts in their spiritual awareness that they were given. And this is what's happening with Rahab. That is what I think some teachers call life in the Spirit. That's just being spiritually sensitive and attuned to what's going on around us. Now, all humans have this capacity, I believe that, because at the core, we are all spiritual beings. That's who we are. But we don't always trust our spiritual senses. We don't always engage with our spiritual senses, just like other things in life. We may have wonderful gifts that we just don't use very much. So in Joshua, we learn why this Canaanite prostitute saved the lives of Israelite spies. She basically saw something that many Israelites even did not see. What did she see? In Joshua chapter 2, verse 9, she said, Ki natan Adonai lechem et haaretz. Hashem gave you the land. As far as she was concerned, she looked at what was about to happen and she said, it's done deal. God has given this to you. We can fight, we can kick, we can scream, we can do whatever we want, but you're going to end up winning. And apparently through whatever means of information that they had back in those days, whatever forms of media they might have utilized, she heard about the Sea of Reeds. And she heard about the victories that God gave to Israelites and the miracles that were just following them. That's what she heard. She said, when we heard that, I knew we were done. And so she perceived that God was truly behind it all, and Jericho is doomed. And she believed it. And what's even more remarkable, as we read Joshua, she has this amazing, beautiful expression of faith in the God of Israel. This is a just amazing monotheistic statement from a Canaanite. Think about it. This is what Joshua 2:11, these are the words of Rahab. She proclaims, Ki Adonai Elohechem hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al ha'aretz mitachat. Hashem, your God, is the God of heavens above and the earth below. He is God. That's it. Well, what's astonishing to me is that this is a profound monotheistic statement coming from a Canaanite woman whose people worshipped many deities. Yet she said, in light of what she saw, your God is the God. And basically she says, I want to be a part of what's happening. The way I look at it is, don't ever mistake that God is so focused on Israel that he is not working within the hearts of the nations. When I read the story about Rahab, I recognize that there is more than I can perceive and see in my little world, in my little tunnel vision. Canaanites are under divine judgment. And here is Rahab, recognizing these things, saying these things out loud. You know, ancient rabbis believed that she sincerely embraced the God of Israel as one true God at that very moment. She became essentially converted by this proclamation, by this affirmation of faith that she has stated out loud, confessing with her own lips. And that's why she aligned herself with Israel and not her own people. So in the Jewish lore, she's converted. That's what happened to her. That transformation has occurred, which is why she said what she said. That's why she believed it. That's why she made her decision. In Jewish tradition, there's a lore that Joshua actually later married her. And she became the foremother of some pretty important people within Israel. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, for one. There's a whole list that the Talmud lists, actually. And of course, what Brad says, that she is even in the genealogical tree of Yeshua. That's pretty amazing, right?
Yes.
A Canaanite woman. And what made it all happen? That proclamation of faith. Now, these, of course, can be just stories, believe it or not, but my job is to share the tradition with you and to let you in on some of the things that we believe. We can find inspiration, regardless of what you think, in this story, in the actions of Rahab. We can learn from her. I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from her, and I outlined 2 lessons that I wanted to share with you this morning. The first lesson is this, and this is going to apply to all of us, Jews, non-Jews. It's just a very broadly universal idea. Recognize God's Spirit at work. Learn how to do this. This is very important. Some people are naturally spiritually aware, and others sometimes, I think, just do not recognize signs or anything from God, even if they're right there in front of them. I don't know why. I don't understand. It just seems to me that way. This is my observation. But it seems like Rahab, she was one of those people who could sense God's Spirit. She was sensitive in this way. And this is the lesson that we can all learn from this wise Canaanite woman. Now, some of you who are listening to me right now may be facing some decisions in your life, maybe facing some spiritual decisions. Maybe you have some crossroads that you're standing at. And as you are pondering these things, as you're considering, and decision making is always not an easy thing, you're probably hoping for some direction from the Lord. Being sensitive to what is going on around you spiritually would be very, very helpful right now. Well, learn from Rahab. Learn how to see God right where you are. She's in the middle of judgment. her people about to be destroyed, yet she is spiritually sensitive enough to see what's going on. And Rahab, she is described as Isha Zonah, a prostitute, yet she's able to recognize God leading Israel to victory. Now, who you are has nothing to do with the capacity to perceive God and to believe. Don't ever minimize people. Don't ever look down on them, because who people are, what they do, what kinds of things that may be irreputable that they're engaged in, Hashem can still speak right to their hearts, and they actually have the ability to see these things and hear these things, because deep inside we're spiritual beings. That's how God made us. So if you want to see God's Spirit at work, my suggestion is look carefully at Israel, even today. Just watch the news, read it, understand it, look at the facts. Don't read all the commentary and all of that nonsense that people add on to it. Just what happened. And then analyze what's happening, why is it happening, and what is God doing through all of that. And be aware that as you are seeing this, as you're watching this, if your eye is upon Israel, it may actually shift your loyalties. And that's what happened with Rahab. She moved away from her people and moved over and said, I want to be with these people through whom God is doing some pretty amazing things. God's Spirit is upon them, whether they even realize it or not. So that's my first point, is recognize God's Spirit at work. It is crucial, it's important for us to learn how to do that. It's not always an easy task. I wish I could give you 3 ways to recognize God's Spirit, but I'm not going to do that, because it's really not that simple. So my second lesson that I want to share with you is join with those who walk with God's Spirit. If you recognize God's Spirit and you have achieved that first step, that you simply have to join with those who are walking in God's Spirit, Rahab did not just recognize what God was doing with Israel. She wanted to be on their side. She risked her life by harboring the spies. She lied to the authorities and arranged for their safe escape. She risked everything in her life. And she recognized what was happening. Why? Because she says, God is with them. I have to help them. So, you see, when she recognized that God's Spirit was upon these people, she extended them what the book of Joshua calls chesed. And what she asked in return was chesed. She wanted kindness. She says, now that I've extended kindness to you, I hid you, I covered for you, I provided an escape for you, I even misdirected the king's people to go look for you where you are not. I just hope that you can provide me chesed in a like way when the time of destruction comes. So that's what she asked for, to be spared. Now, sensing God's Spirit and believing is one thing, but she actually joined through a decisive action. She picked a side, and her actions spoke louder than any words. She did risk her life and extend kindness, risking everything. So, I don't know what it is special about Jericho, by the way, but maybe you remember another story. Maybe Jericho is just a place where spiritually sensitive people live. I don't know. There's a story that Luke tells us about Yeshua, our master, who was in Jericho, kind of passing by, and a wealthy tax collector by the name of Zacchaeus, remember? He climbed into a sycamore tree to just catch a glimpse of this miracle-working rabbi. Now, why did Zacchaeus do that? Because he was a short guy. And he knew he couldn't see through the crowd. So he said, I'm going to gain an advantage. I'm going to climb into the tree. And when the rabbi passes by, at least I'll know what he looks like. So if I ever meet him again later, I know who I'm looking for. So that was his desire. He wanted to see him so badly. And then Yeshua, as he was passing by, he saw this man in the tree. He said, that guy, I'm eating dinner at your house. I don't have a place to stay. I'm staying with you. And that's how Zacchaeus turns out to be a host for Yeshua, which turns out to be very fortuitous to him. Obviously, He was a wealthy, rich person. He was a Jew, but a tax collector, which you have to understand is down there on the list of really disreputable people. He was helping the enemies. He was making the enemies of Israel rich by collecting taxes for them. And yet Yeshua recognized his faith, his desire, his yearning to know. Why? Because Zacchaeus had that sensitivity of spirit. There was something special about that rabbi that he had to climb the tree to see him. And Yeshua recognized that sensitivity in him, and he said, I'm going to have dinner at your house. So, once again, it does not matter who you are when it comes to recognizing God's Spirit. It's really what you do after you have recognized God's Spirit. And that is the lesson that we can take away from Rachav. Shabbat Shalom.